So today we will discuss about chapter 11, designing a newsfeed system. So basically, in a newsfeed system is something like a timeline, like a Twitter timeline or your Instagram timeline, where you are seeing the feed from different people, like people you follow or people you don't follow as well, right? So that is the kind of system. So newsfeed here can include photos, videos, links, right? And yeah, something like that is your news feed, and it constantly gets updated, right? And yeah, so now the question here is the we will move on to the step one in an interview, like how would you ask the clarification questions. So first set of clarification questions are to understand what the interviewer has in mind when she asks you to design a newsfeed system, so that we can establish like what kind of system we will design. So we will ask these questions, whether it is a mobile app or a web app, so both in this case, right? And a user can publish a post, so these are the important features. See her friend's post on the newsfeed page. So whatever the user is posting it, that will be visible. So as a part of newsfeed, they should be able to publish the post and see the friend's post as well. Is the newsfeed sorted by reverse chronological order or any particular order, such as topic scores? For instance, posts from your close friends have higher scores. So here, interviewer says that let's keep it sorted by chronological order, reverse chronological order. That means whatever is latest would be visible first. So obviously, whatever is recently, like 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, that will come first, and whatever is published like one day ago will come later in your feed. And but there can be cases like which the candidate tries to ask is whether we can have some popularity or something like that. So but for this particular design we just want to focus on the reverse chronological order, right? Does that make sense, like, or do you guys think that we should keep it some popularity also or some score to the close friends?
For 45 minutes interview, this is okay.
Yeah.
I know Facebook and Twitter take popularity into consideration, so that will be a kind of a challenging requirement. We
Mm-hmm.
can have that in extended requirement, but for the sake of feature requirement, this is okay.
Okay. Okay, sure. So and then the candidate tries to ask like how many friends a user can have. So there can be around 5,000 friends for one particular user. And what is the traffic volume? So here the traffic volume is 10 million daily active users. So this is the kind of requirement we have. Yeah, and maybe if I can try to add something, but yeah, okay. So yeah, so basically here the feed can contain all the images and videos as well, not just text but everything, right? So that is also fair. I think we can have all the media and details. So now we have gathered the requirement. So just to summarize here, we will be focusing on both mobile and web app. The user should be able to publish a post and see the friend's post, and the order of the feed is in reverse chronological order. There can be 5,000 friends and 10 million active users on a daily basis, right? And this is an important question, like we should always ask that whether what kind of media we have to store. So we know that now that both images and videos we should store. So let's move on. So as there were two requirements, like how would you publish the feed? So that is feed publishing, and second is the news building, news feed building. So where you are generating the news feed. So feed publishing, when a user posts, corresponding data is written to the cache and DB. Okay, and the post is populated to the friends through news feed. Okay, sure. So yeah, I mean here I think we are focused on basically the news feed publishing and news feed building. And but why are we trying to write into the cache, like while publishing it, so that
So we have not discussed non-functional requirement. I think it is missed in the book. They only gave the scalable part, but based on the CAP theorem, we should decide with the interview that whether we are looking for availability or consistency.
mm-hmm.
So I think we need high availability here, and we are okay with eventual consistency. And now this feed publishing part, the question you are asking is, I think because we want very less latency to fetch the post. So as soon as I open my application, I should see all the news feed being generated for me. And for that to happen, we should have some of the posts already prepared for me in the cache. So the app can just fetch it from the backend and display in my device immediately. So for that, I think cache and database will come into picture.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, it should not happen that the feed keeps on loading for you. So maybe we can have some cache where the data gets stored and we can show it to the user. So that and the cache can keep on refreshing. Something like that we can have.
Right. So it's basically solving a non-functional requirement at a low latency.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. Yeah. Okay, so makes sense. We have to use a cache here and a deep DB, which is your permanent storage, and post is populated to friends. So I think if one user is there, it can have almost 5,000 friends. So uh, the feed would be kind of that particular post will populate to all the friends. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so let us assume that the news feed is building by aggregating the friends post in reverse chronological order. Okay, news feeds API. So the news feed API are the primary ways for clients to communicate with servers, and those APIs are HTTP based that allow clients to perform actions which include like posting a status, adding friends, etc. Right, so we will discuss two APIs. One is the feed publishing API and another is the newsfeed retriever. So I think here we are trying to so we are trying in our design, we are like moving in into our design. So we will have basically two services. One would be to kind of yeah, one would be to kind of allow that feed publishment, like so the user would be able to post, it would be a post API, so user can post an image, text, or video, right? So that is the content, is the text of the post, and there's a auth token which is to authenticate the API request. So it's a fairly like a post call, HTTP post call. And another API which we are designing is the retrieval API, which is getting the feed. So which is a get API and it uses auth token to authenticate API request. Okay, so there are two services, which is your newsfeed API, and these are basically the APIs which are exposed. Now we will try to deep dive into the feed publishing API, feed publishing flow. So whenever one user is posting a post, then it can either be a text or video or image, and it can go to n number of friends. So how we will do that, I think that we will discuss here. So let's see. So a user can view news feeds on a browser or a mobile app. So it takes the auth token, then the content of the file. So there is a load balancer which kind of distributes the load. Then web servers redirect traffic to internal services. Post service stores in a DB and cache. So there's a cache where also you will store the data, and a post DB. Then there is a fan out service, push new content to friends newsfeed. Newsfeed data is stored in the cache for fast retrieval. Okay, then notification service to notify that new content is available, and this will send out the push notifications. Okay. Okay, so it's a fairly like simple flow where you have when a user goes, then it will call the DNS, and whatever the API we are using, it gets resolved, and then it will be calling this API with this auth token. And once you make a request, it will go to the post service, it stores the data in the cache and the DB. And fan out service, the purpose is to send that post to your friends. So that is the purpose of this fan out service. And then there's a notification service which kind of informs all the friends about this flow. So this is the first flow, that is the feed publishing flow. So that is there. So any questions here before we move on?
Here they have directly jumped to the solution of this newsfeed cache. Like basically, they want to reduce the latency. But
Yeah.
if you are kind of solving it for the first time or hearing this problem for the first time, this won't strike like immediately to you. Let's
Yes.
say we are making a social media app for and it is starting with the 100 users first.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first solution that will come to your mind, it will be when I open an app, the app will fetch all of my friends, then it will fetch all the posts of all my friends, and then it will sort that in reverse chronological order, and then
Mm-hmm.
it will display in my device. So that is a high latency solution I'm talking about. But that is the first solution you will think about it.
Yeah.
Here, the author is talking about the design where you have already prepared this timeline for the user, and you are storing that in a cache. That is newsfeed cache here.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you open the app, you will directly fetch the timeline from the newsfeed cache. So now you are solving a low latency problem when you have a lot of users and you need a high scalable and low latency solution.
Yeah.
So they directly jump to this, but that is also a solution for new startup social media also.
So are you saying that this news feed cache is like a common pool of cache which is accessible to all the friends?
it's a cache based on user, and like key is your user ID, and the value is something like the all the posts in the reverse chronological order. So using this cache, your app will fetch your timeline immediately.
Okay. Okay, but no, I mean the purpose of the fan out service is to send that post to the feed of my friends, right? If I am a user, I am doing a post. The
So
post.
not send. The purpose of the fan out service is to pre-compute the timeline for any user. But when that user comes online, it will fetch it from that cache.
Yeah, yeah, that is what I meant. That it is a common pool, right? So all the friends will access this cache.
All the users here.
Yeah. So okay, but I'm just trying to understand that if let's say each user will have its own cache, right? Then in that case, so
No,
um,
each user will have a entry in the cache, not whole cache. So you can assume
okay.
this cache as a key value pair where key is the user ID.
Mm-hmm.
That is your friend ID. So user ID. And the value is the array list of all the post, like post ID 1, post ID 2, that is the array list. And it's in a reverse chronological order. So latest post ID is first, then the older post ID, then the older post ID. So that chain of values posts will be there.
Okay.
So how
If
frequently?
we have Excel draw, we can draw this as well
Yeah,
if
let
there is
me
a confusion.
just create that.
So one thing, like how frequently that cache will be updated, like, and yeah, like what will be like basically policy?
So we
Um,
have not gone to that flow in the book, but what I think is as soon as you make a post, uh, the fan out service will take your post and add it to the timeline for all your of your friends. So it will keep updating the timeline of your friends whenever you add a post.
Yeah.
It's kind of a pre-computing the timeline for all the users.
So if you say your news feed, I have shared the link in chat. Please see if you have access. So if you have a news feed cache, and let's say I am a user one, right? I am user one, and I have friends like F1, F2, F3, right? And now I am publishing a post, let's say P1. Okay. So newsfeed cache will store like U1 has posted, user one has posted P1 post at time T1, right?
Can you click on live collaboration because I'm not able to see the changes here.
I did that actually.
Okay, don't know why it's not.
Mm, is that accessible?
Okay, that was a different link this time. Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So yeah, let's discuss on this. Like, how would this newsfeed cache kind of help in
So,
generating?
consider it as a table, this cache, where key is all the user IDs. So F1, F2, F3 are different rows in that cache, and the value is the array list of posts that is coming from all of their friends
Okay.
in order. So can we draw that here? Like,
Yeah, we can. You can try maybe.
okay. So F1, P, P2, P3. So it will be something like this, where we have a kind of a hash table or any key value pair that's in memory, and the key is the user ID, and the values are the array list of posts that we want to show in the timeline. So as soon as F2 comes online, the app will fetch the this array list from the cache, and it will display in the app.
Okay.
Does
Uh,
it make sense?
okay, and there would be some mapping which is like this U it since it's the U1 cache, so U1 will have this data, right? And similarly for U2 we will have
No,
it.
no, no, no. So this is a generic cache. So it's for all the users. Now there is a news. You're talking about cache here, but news there is a newsfeed service that is doing that. So as soon as you one make a post, it will take that post. That service will fetch out all the users of this user one. So let's say F1, F2, F3 are the friends of this. Now it will update the basically post array list for that F1, F2,
Oh,
F3,
okay.
and it will store in the cache.
Okay, so you mean that P1 can be associated with some U1 and P2 can be associated with U2.
Correct, correct. So it can come from different users who are friend of F1.
Okay, okay. Okay, makes sense that each friend will have an entry and post IDs, and this is basically their cache.
So I'm changing your cache to newsfeed service. So I think then it will make more sense.
Yeah.
Uh, so basically, the service will talk to this cache and keep updating the cache.
Mm-hmm.
What this newsfeed service will do, as soon as user make any post, it will figure out friends of user one, and then it will kind of update the timeline of all friends
Okay.
with the post that user one has made, and then it will update in the cache. That will be the third point. It update in newsfeed cache
Mm-hmm.
that is in the right side.
Okay.
These three things are the responsibilities of newsfeed service,
Uh,
and the request will go to newsfeed service whenever any user makes a post.
okay. Is it a news feed service or is it we can say news like publish service which we were discussing? We were discussing this
No,
service, right?
posting that is the responsibility of the post service, but also web server will give it to fan out service to create the timeline for all its friends. So there are two things happening here. One is we are creating a post for that user that is done by the post service, but we are also updating the timeline of all the friends of that user
Yeah.
that is done by the fan out service. And to do that, a fan out service would also know about the post that user one has made.
Got it. Yeah, I think I understood it. Anyone has any other questions?
Yeah, I think there would be a database also for a fan out service.
Uh,
No, I don't think so because
Because
it's only required for like short term, right? So they are basically kind of maintaining it in memory so that you can fetch your timeline as soon as possible. They're not writing a database.
yeah,
It's ever changing, right? Whenever
yeah,
any user makes up a new post, your timeline will change. So it's keep on changing every now and then. So you don't need to process in database if
yeah,
required.
yeah. It's kind of a cache. Cache would be faster also, and you can have, let's say, for one user around 100 posts or something like that.
yeah, but there could be some offline users as well. So for them, because you have to show them the timeline, not now immediately, but maybe 15 days later or maybe a year later also. So for them, I think for
No, but that would be a new thing, right? They will have their new cache, like whatever is persisted for them.
No, so the question is right, but I think that also we can do in the cache. We can have this thing stored. We are anyways storing for all the users, right? So even for that user, we can allow to have this persistence for 2 or 3 months in memory. That is okay. But maybe for many offline users that are not active for years, I think we can take another way that we will not update their thing in the cache and we will compute it as soon as they come online. Like we can take that call based on their
Yeah, if the
online.
user, yeah, if the user is not that active, then maybe we can generate their cache, generate the cache or from the DB or something.
When they comes online.
Yeah.
but how will you maintain, like, is the post seen already in a timeline or not by a
Uh,
user?
So first you will check in the cache, and if you have that user ID in the cache, you will fetch the timeline. And let's say that user ID is not in the cache. Let's say I have logged in after a year, and maybe the system decided not to keep my timeline in the cache. Then it will basically talk to the post DB to create the timeline for me. So basically, it will fetch all of my friends. It will fetch the post from my friends, and it will basically sort them in a reverse chronological order and display in my app.
Okay, okay.
yeah, I mean, uh, mostly like you have some mutual friends and stuff like that, right? So maybe for some time it can refer to their cache and show the results, although that not might be accurate, but over the time when the user is active, then uh, I mean we can show the result. So I think that is a very edge case, like if the user is not active, then how would you show that, right? So maybe the data could be inaccurate for some time for that inactive user, but I think that doesn't affect your availability, right? At least you are showing something to the user.
My take is this only. So if the user frequency is high, login frequency is high, it will be picked from the cache, and if their login frequency is very low, after 6 months, then we will generate it from DB.
No,
Anyways,
but
we
if
have
you are
to
generating from DB, then your latency will increase, right?
that is okay. So at a time, we are only showing 10 posts or 15 posts at your device, right? If you're in mobile, you won't see more than 10 posts. So it's kind of a paginated query.
Mm-hmm.
For creating first 10 posts, it won't take that much time. Like there will be some latency. You will see a white blank page for some time because you have logged in after a while. But that is okay. Like it can take 300, 400 milliseconds for that thing, but that is okay. So as soon as you have generated a 10 post for that user, just give it to the app and then try to compute the older post for that. So it's kind of a paginated thing, right? You don't have to compute 100 or 1,000 of posts and then give it to user. You can do it one by one using pagination.
Agreed,
Yeah, but,
agreed. Yeah.
but there is a difference. Like if we pre-compute in a DB and then only keep only first 10 post for a user, and then when he goes to a second page, then fetch all the pre-computed rather than doing the computation at runtime from post DB. Like if the user scrolls down too much, uh, rather than we can store all this pre-computed timeline in a DB actually.
No, so I'm not saying we will not store that in cache. I was just talking about the offline users, like who are logging in after a very long time.
Yeah. So
But
actually,
we are storing everything in the cache. Even timeline will have a lot of posts. I'm not saying that we will only store 10 posts in the cache. That was not my point.
yeah, like if we store it, then it comes with a cost, right? If it is really required, then only we will store. Otherwise,
No, just I was saying, like if we store only post ID with the user ID also with timestamp,
that is happening here, right, in the post DB.
So yeah. So what are you saying, Rohit? If we only store post ID, then what is the
we store like only user ID with post ID and timeline, post ID and timestamp in user feed, list of post ID and timestamp basically.
mm-hmm.
And for example, a user is on first page, like a home page,
Mm-hmm.
then that will be kept in a cache, or maybe at least 50 posts will be kept in a cache. But he goes if deep down, then they can be fetched from the DB like pre-computed one rather than computing again from the post DB. Like if he goes very much down while scrolling.
Yeah.
So rather than computing again from the post DB, they can be already kept in a DB in a newsfeed cache.
that is there in the post cache. So for post, you have a different cache here. That is the post cache if you see in the diagram with the post service. So for the recent post, you can have all those in the cache, and you can get all the details for that post using post ID from there. If it's not there, you can fetch it from DB, and that is okay. If you are kind of want to get the details of 10 or 15 posts at a time, that will also work okay. It won't be that high latency that we think.
Yeah, like for 10 posts, I think that is not much significant
It,
latency.
it is just a 10 get queries
Mm.
for the 10 post IDs, right? It won't be that high latency if you think. But anyways, we should have a post cache. So let's say for recent posts like posted in last 10 days, we should have those in post cache. But older posts we will fetch from DB.
Yeah, and I agree. Like we can do things offline also, like depending upon the user behavior. Like we can generate the things offline and then show it to the user using the post DB or something like that. If you don't want to use the cache, cache will have only the recent data. Even I think in Twitter also, if let's say the user is inactive, they kind of generate it offline only, like the feed and all.
Okay.
What does offline mean here?
I mean offline for some time if it is later coming, like after let's say 15 days later, the user is coming.
Okay.
But the flow is not changing whether you are online or offline. Like yesterday in WhatsApp, the flow was completely changed. For online, we use WebSocket, and for offline, it was post notification. Here, the flow is still same. If even if you're online or offline, your timeline will be generated and stored in the newsfeed cache, and your when you log in, your app will fetch it from the newsfeed cache only. So that flow will still be the same even if you're online or offline. There is no change.
Yeah, there could be like trade-offs also. This design can is possible is not completely correct. So whatever, like I mean, Rohit, if you are thinking some other solution, it could be valid also. So it depends like how you are designing, right?
No, I don't think Lohit had some other solution. He had this concern that if we are fetching it from DB, it will be very high latency.
Uh, okay. No,
Any concern, Lohit? Like you want to?
No, I was just like for offline also, and for the user if he's scrolling very down, I was just keeping a list of timeline, like pre-computed timeline and DB actually, and the recent timeline of a user who is active will be kept in basically cache. So anybody who is there on the timeline service or a finite service doesn't have to go back to a post service to compute again, basically.
I agree, and that is what happening. If you see the diagram in the escalate draw, we are just storing the post ID in the values of different users, and that post ID details will be fetched from the post cache.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
yeah. So let's move on. I think. Yeah. So in the news feed building, we will discuss about like how it is happening. So the user sends a request to retrieve the news feed. This is a GET API. So the load balancer then redirects traffic to web servers, which is happening here. Then newsfeed service talks to the newsfeed cache, which we were just discussing, like how the user will get. So this is a common pool of cache, and it will uh, get the data. So newsfeed service. So let's web service routes the request to the newsfeed service. Newsfeed service then fetches newsfeed from the cache. Okay, and stores newsfeed ID to render the newsfeed. Okay. Sure. I think we already discussed this, so let's move on. So design deep dive. So feed publishing service and newsfeed were the two main services which we had to discuss. So now we will deep dive into the components. So I think here user makes a call to DNS, then it calls the feed publishing service. So web servers are responsible for your authentication and rate limiting. It makes a call to the post service, and this is the same flow, post cache and post DB. Then in the fan out service, where you were using this it will kind of try to find that this user, what are the friend IDs. It will find all the friend IDs of this user. Then it will find the from the user cache what is the data of that of those friend IDs, like user's name and stuff like that, user name and all. I think that data it will get, and then it will publish it to the queue, like what are the friends, and one by one it will process from the queue, and these worker nodes will update the cache, right? Is that correct, or this is the flow, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So just I think one thing they have added is the message queue, because there could be 5,000 friends for one user, so they will do it one by
Yeah,
one.
they have basically dissected the newsfeed service and created this internal component, fan out service, the graph database part, and the message queue.
Mm. And notification service still remains same. So let's move on. So besides communicating with clients, web servers enforce authentication and rate limiting. I think we already know this. So only users signed in and valid auth token are allowed to post. Uh, the system limits the number of posts a user can make within a certain period. So that is the rate limiting, right? You can't keep on posting. Some some limit would be there, like 15 posts in 1 hour or something like that. So vital to prevent spam and abusive content. Then fan out service. So this was the critical piece in our design. So they are discussing more on that. So fan out is the process of delivering post to all the friends. Two types of fan out models are fan out on write, also called the push model, and fan out on read, also called the pull model. Both models have their pros and cons, and we will explain the workflows and explore the best approach to support our system. So there are two approaches for fan out. So we are discussing one by one. So fan out on write. So newsfeed is pre-computed during write time. A new post is delivered to friends cache immediately after it is published. Okay. Pros: the newsfeed is generated in real time and can be pushed to the friends immediately. Okay. Fetching newsfeed is fast because the newsfeed is pre-computed during write time. Because you are doing then and there, right? Whenever it's I think cache policy only, right? There is write in cache and write through cache, something like that. Fan out on write. As soon as I think as soon as you are doing a post, it is then and there updating the cache.
Right.
And fan out on read is like it will update the cache when on demand, I think. So whenever, yeah, that is what is mentioned here also, on demand model. So the news feed is generated during read time. So let's say I am a friend and I want to see, so I will make a get call that generate my news feed. So on demand it will update the cache, but this doesn't look to me a good approach. So for inactive users, this model can be used who rarely log in, because if let's say a user is not active and you are keep on updating their cache, then it's a waste of resources, right? And the users are not seeing it. So that is how I think I read it somewhere in some design, that we have to segregate the users, like whether it is an inactive user, active user, or celebrity or something. So you can divide it, and the workflow for them would be different. The APIs would be common, but the workflow, how you store the data, how you retrieve the data, can be different. Data is not pushed to friends, so there is a no hotkey problem. Yeah, here the newsfeed is not pre-computed, so it is slow. So yeah, they are approaching it with a hybrid model to get benefits for both the approaches. Since fetching newsfeed is fast and crucial, we use the push model for majority of the users, which is the fan out on write.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So for celebrity or users who have many friends or followers, we let followers to pull news content on demand. For celebrities, that is the pull model. So consistent hashing is a useful technique to mitigate the hotkey problem, as it helps in distribute requests more evenly. Okay, yeah, I think this is just we are these are the two approaches, right?
And they are suggesting to have a hybrid approach in this case. So for celebrities and for many followers users, go with the pull model, and for majority of users go with the push model.
Okay, yeah. So let's discuss the flow. So I think they will be just discussing this diagram, right? So we will move fast. So fetch friends IDs from graph database. They are suitable for maintaining your friend relationship and friends recommendation. There is some reference material which talks about the graph DB. So it's kind of a DB which is optimized for the relationships, follow and follower thing, right? So get friends info from user cache. So the system then filters out friends based on user settings. For example, if you mute someone, our post will not show up on your newsfeed. Right, this is just for muting and all, right? Another reason why post may not show up, that a user could selectively share information with specific friends or hide the people. So there can be some filtering which can happen in between for the updation of the cache. Send friend list and post ID to the yeah. So in the first two step you get the data, and in the third step you call the message queue, which is here. This is the third step. Think of newsfeed cache as a post ID comma user ID in the mapping table, and whenever new post is made, it will be appended to the newsfeed table as shown. Most users are only interested in the latest cache, so the cache miss rate is low. Okay, this also makes sense. But here, like I mean, Vishal, they have saying that the cache will look like something like this: post ID comma user ID. But like in our design, we were discussing it will be something like a friend one comma. Uh,
Right. So in the values, I had this post IDs sorted
mhm.
in reverse time stamp, but they are also storing the user ID along with the post ID. So it will be something like a pair of P1 U1, then P2 U2, then P3 U3 for each of the users. So let me try to change that now.
So I think why they are doing in this way, because they are using here graph db and all, so that is giving them the friend ids and stuff, and user id will give them the data of them. uh, but what
Right. So it's easy to fetch the details of post using the post ID and details of user using the user ID. So they are kind of storing the both of the thing in the timeline. I was just storing the post IDs in the timestamp, but they are kind of storing both post ID and user ID. So you can fetch easily all the details required for that particular post and user.
okay.
I'm trying to update that in the cache that we
Okay, so
got.
so how would this cache look like? Okay, so post store the post id and user id in the newsfeed cache. So now it will show us the example how it would look like. So these are your post id and user id. Now there would be a get call which would happen. So there is a newsfeed service, then these things will happen: user cache, post cache, and newsfeed cache. The user sends a request to retrieve her newsfeed. The request looks like this: the load balancer redistribute request to web servers. The web servers call the newsfeed service to fetch newsfeed. Newsfeed service gets a list of post IDs from the newsfeed cache. So I'm not able to understand this actually. Like um, till here, it is fine that we are storing post ID and user ID, but now in the newsfeed retrieval,
Mhm.
this is fine. It calls one service which tries to get the data from newsfeed cache. So this newsfeed cache has user one mapped to post ID, right? So these user ID, this is a common cache, I think. So multiple user can have multiple post. Okay, and then what it is trying to get from the post cache.
The details of the post. So you need to get the post content and any URL image URL it have. So you only have the post ID in the newsfeed cache, right?
Mm-hmm.
Post ID and the user ID. But to get the all the details of that particular post and user, you have to talk to their cache as well.
Okay, and okay, fine. And how would this know actually that which element it has to pick from the newsfeed cache?
So that's newsfeed cache have that key value pair, right? That let's say I logged in and I wanted to see the timeline for myself. So my user ID is 5. Now it will search for that key in the newsfeed cache for user ID 5, and it will fetch that value. So value is the array list of the all the post IDs and their user IDs who have posted that thing. Now for each of that item in that value, it will fetch the details of that user from the user cache and details of the post from the post cache using the user ID and post ID that was stored in that item. And then it will try to generate my timeline. So newsfeed service will keep on generating this timeline. So let's say they will do it for the first 10 items. So my first page will be generated, then they will return it back to my app, my client side.
Okay, so user's newsfeed is more than just a feed IDs. It contains username, complete data. This I think Vishal explained. Then a fully hydrated newsfeed is returned in a JSON format to the client. Okay, so I'm still not getting actually, like you are storing post ID. So what my doubt is, I'll explain that uh, your newsfeed cache was this thing. So for example, there is a u1 u1 it posts p1, then u2 then it posts p2. This is your newsfeed cache. Now I want to generate newsfeed for some u1, let's say, right? u1 makes a get call to get the newsfeed.
I'll be back in a minute. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, so how would that happen actually?
So I think in U1 there will be list of post actually.
u1.
Like U1 sees your timeline. Like basically it sees P1 from. So what is U1? U1 is like a person who is seeing the timeline.
No, u1, yeah, u1 is someone who makes a call to get the newsfeed.
Yeah, and then there is a P1 post which is posted by some other user. So we have to also keep with P1 another U1 who is the owner of that post,
Mm-hmm.
who created that post.
Okay.
And then there could be a timestamp as well here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like one such entry, and maybe this could be in a kind of a list or uh, yeah. So for each user, like there could be a list of posts basically arranged in their timestamp, post and user ID basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got that. but yeah, still not able to. I'm not getting convinced, but yeah, maybe I can check that later. Okay. So because why I'm saying is because here you are storing the data in a different format. Then how would user one know that who all are my friends, right? Because it
No,
is
while fetching, he doesn't has to know basically. He only gets to see the pre-computed feed.
okay. Got it. Uh, which is here you are talking about here the workers which can create the
Yes.
cache, newsfeed cache, and but it stores post ID and user ID. It should be a list of post IDs in that case, right?
Yes. Yes. For one user ID, list of post IDs.
Hmm. That is what I was getting confused. So let's read it to fan out workers and the cache. I think newsfeed post ID mapping table it will be appended. Yeah, I think that is the correct approach. It should be a list of post IDs. Otherwise, I don't see like how this is beneficial because we are using workers and all, right? Those are pre-computing.
What is the confusion here
So I am thinking that it should be a list of post IDs.
in the newsfeed cache?
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, it's a list of post IDs and user ID pair, right?
yeah. But here they
So
are
first if I
talking
type
about it is a single post ID, right?
no, I think here they are talking about a single user ID. Let's say this is my timeline. So first I will have post ID followed by some user ID, and basically all the posts that I will see in the timeline. This is just for a single user, I guess. But the cache will look something like that. What I've drawn in the SQL draw, that
Yeah,
you will have many user ID as a key, and you will have their timestamp that is
yeah.
pair of
Agreed. Yeah, this is what I'm
makes sense, right?
convinced. Yeah, this makes more sense. But yeah, this diagram got me confused. This one.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah. So let's move on. So the cache architecture. So it has into 5 layers. So we are layering it down. It's a multi-level kind of cache. So first is the news feed, then hot cache, normal, follower, liked, replied, others. So it stores the IDs. It stores post data in hot cache. So at different layer, we are basically defining the layers and how we are going to show it to the user. So first it will try to look into L1, then L2, then L3, L4, something like that. So actually this is really interesting. I mean, this I didn't thought about it that we can create something like that. Is my understanding correct? It will first try to look into newsfeed and then content, then this, right?
I'm reading it. I'm trying to understand. I'm not sure right now.
Okay, let's. I think it's a wrap up. So, okay, but I'm just thinking that like this is really interesting because what Rohit was saying, right? Ki if the user is offline, so through this I think that can be handled. That it will keep on looking into the layers.
These are basically different caches, right? One is a newsfeed cache, which is
No, cache
helpful
is one. Cache is single only, but it is multi-layered. So
multi-layered means there are basically different places we have stored this. Like news feed, you will only will be helpful while fetching the timeline, and content will be helpful when you want to fetch details about a post using a post ID. Similarly, if you want to fetch out all of my friends, then the social graph cache layer will be important. So they're talking. We have cache, but we are caching kind of five different things here. First is a news feed. The, another is a content social
yeah,
graph,
I agree
and
to
if
that.
we are
Like
liking post
different
replies,
things
there is
are. Yeah, I agree to that. Different things are stored, but what I'm trying to say that if let's say we don't get the data in the first thing, then we can get the data from the second thing based on the priority, right? How?
but why we will go one by one? Like it depends on what you want to do. If you are interested in fetching out the likes of this post, you will directly go to the action layer. Why will you go to the newsfeed layer? If you are interested in fetching the all the content of this post using the post ID, then you will directly go to the content here. You don't need to worry about the other layers in that case.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, it's okay. But I'm just thinking in perspective of multi-layer cache
See,
architecture,
for
basically.
analogy, let's say, so we have a kitchen, we have all the masalas there in our drawer, right? The garam masala and those all things. But for cache purpose, we keep it in a box which have little drawers. So
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
kind of a cache that you use by our mothers.
yeah,
One block have salt, one block have
yeah.
masala,
Understood.
one block have something. So that is a basically different layer they're talking. So that box is a cache, and that all the blocks are separate layers there. So if you want to pick salt, you will just go to that salt block and you will pick that, right?
Got it.
If you want garam masala, you will go to that particular layer of that cache.
Exactly.
And you
Yeah,
pick that.
yeah. It makes more sense. You don't have to do a round robin thing or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think we are done here. So they are saying that there is no perfect way to design a system. So you have to decide on the technology and trade-offs. And so we basically discussed about. We can discuss about interview in our interview on these trade-offs: vertical scaling, horizontal SQL, and NoSQL. Uh, so I think these things we generally discuss during the interview, and we should discuss these trade-offs while deciding on the design. This was also an important thing that we use message queues. We cache the data, right? So I think we are done here. So thank you guys. Good job. and I'll share this. I'll just copy this.
This is the first time we are done in an all
Yeah, I think this chapter was very slow, very
small.
small. Yeah, so that's why we were able to cover. So we are done with almost 4 chapters. So tomorrow, are you guys available or how is it?
I am.